from Templars to Freemasons, the secret legacy in the year 1119. 9 knights gathered in the ruins of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, and of the temple of Solomon the Knights Templar. What began as a humble order to protect Christian pilgrims would become the most powerful and mysterious organization in medieval Europe. But their story doesn't end with their brutal suppression in 1307. It transforms. The Templars weren't just warriors and bankers, they became guardians of ancient wisdom. They used sacred geometry in their construction, incorporating proportions that created spaces designed to elevate the human spirit. Their initiation ceremonies, conducted in strict secrecy, bound members through sacred oaths and mysterious rituals. The Templars had become custodians of something far greater than military might. They possessed knowledge that transcended the ordinary world. During their excavations beneath Solomon's temple, legends claim they discovered sacred artifacts, perhaps the Ark of the Covenant. At dawn, across France, King Philip IV's soldiers simultaneously arrested every Templar they could find, and in the shadows of medieval Europe, among stonemasons, architects, and craftsmen, certain traditions persisted. The builders of great cathedrals passed down techniques that seemed to echo Templar innovations. Sacred geometry continued to influence religious architecture, and in the guild systems that protected craft secrets, rituals and ceremonies began to evolve that would later seem remarkably familiar. Philip had already expelled the Jews and seized their wealth, while the scientific revolution challenged medieval assumptions about reality. Into this intellectual ferment, the scattered seeds of Templar wisdom began to sprout. Now he turned his predatory gaze on the church's wealthiest order. Here, the Templars had found refuge, and here their traditions began to merge with local craft guilds. The stonemasons of Scotland had their own ancient traditions, their own ceremonies for admitting new members and protecting trade secrets. But sometime in the 16th or 17th centuries, practical guilds began to admit members who were unactual stonemasons, speculative rather than operative members. A Templar fleet, some claim, sailed from La Rochelle just before the dawn raids. The rituals became more elaborate, the symbolism more complex. References to Solomon's temple, the building of sacred spaces, and the geometry of divine creation began to dominate the ceremonies. The transformation had begun, carrying not gold and silver, but something far more precious, the intellectual and spiritual heritage of the order. The Pope, initially resistant, eventually succumbed to pressure. In 1312, the order was officially dissolved. Jacques de Mans, the last Grand Master, was burned at the stake in 1314, cursing King Philip and Pope Clement as the flames consumed him. The charges were explosive: heresy, blasphemy, worshipping false idols, and legend becomes a foundation of modern mystery. Not all Templars were captured that fateful October morning. Many escaped, particularly those in Scotland, Portugal, and other regions beyond Philip's immediate reach. In Scotland, some historians believe fleeing Templars fought alongside Robert the Bruce at Bannockburn, helping secure Scottish independence and practicing unholy rituals. Under torture, some Templars confessed to spitting on the cross, worshipping a mysterious head called Baphomet, and engaging in secret ceremonies that mocked Christian doctrine. Ancient scrolls containing the secrets of sacred geometry, or manuscripts revealing the true nature of Christ's teachings. Whether these discoveries were real or imagined, Templars developed sophisticated knowledge of architecture, mathematics, and esoteric philosophy that would echo through the centuries, evolves and emerges centuries later in the shadowy halls of Freemasonry. Jerusalem, freshly conquered by Christian crusaders. The Holy Land was a dangerous place for pilgrims seeking salvation. Untold Peons and his 8 companions, within decades, they controlled a network of fortresses from Europe to the Holy Land. They invented modern banking, issuing letters of credit that allowed pilgrims to deposit money in one country and withdraw it in another. They accumulated vast wealth, answering only to the Pope himself. Their white mantles with red crosses became symbols of both divine mission and earthly power. Warriors who took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. King Baldwin II granted them quarters beneath the Temple Mount, the very foundation of Solomon's legendary temple. For 9 years, these knights excavated in secret, ostensibly searching for threats to pilgrims. But what were they really looking for in those ancient chambers? The Templars' rise was meteoric. Here's where the story takes a mysterious turn. Their castles and churches displayed mathematical precision that rivaled the greatest monuments of antiquity. October 13th, 1307, a date that would live in infamy. But was this the truth, or was it the desperate fabrication of a bankrupt king who owed the Templars enormous sums? Here's where history becomes legend. But the most intriguing theory suggests that the Templars' true treasures, their accumulated knowledge, sacred artifacts, and secret wisdom were spirited away before the arrests began. For 4 centuries, the Templar legacy seemed to vanish into the mists of history. But secret knowledge has a way of preserving itself. The Protestant Reformation shattered the Catholic Church's monopoly on spiritual truth, creating space for alternative forms of spirituality. The Renaissance rediscovered classical learning. Scotland becomes crucial to our story. These new initiates brought with them classical learning, esoteric philosophy, and perhaps, most importantly, oral traditions that traced back to the Knights Templar. June 24th, 1717. 4 London lodges met at the Goose and Gridiron Tavern and formed the first Grand Lodge of England. This marks the official birth of modern Freemasonry, but the symbols they employed told a different story, which explicitly claimed to continue the traditions of the medieval order. Candidates were told they were receiving the same secrets that had been preserved since the time of the Crusades. The ritual recreated the final hours of Jacques de Maz, the last Grand Master, and candidates swore to avenge his death. Anti-Masonic movements claimed that the organization was a conspiracy to undermine traditional authority. Its meetings listed in newspapers, its charitable works publicly celebrated. The Knights Templar embodied humanity's eternal quest to reconcile the spiritual and material worlds, carrying forward the Templar emphasis on brotherly bonds, sacred architecture, and hidden wisdom. Whether the connection is literal or symbolic, we re-witnessing the continuation of a story that began 9 centuries ago in the ruins of Solomon's temple. But their true treasures, the pursuit of wisdom and the bonds of brotherhood, proved indestructible. In the lodges of Freemasonry, that treasure continues to be passed from one generation to the next, ensuring that the light kindled in Jerusalem 800 years ago still burns in the modern world. The specific forms have changed, but the essential spirit remains, the conviction that there are deeper truths to be discovered, that geometry and architecture can reveal divine principles, and that human beings can transcend their ordinary limitations through dedication to higher ideals. It speaks to something profound in human experience, the need to believe that truth and justice can survive even the most violent suppression, that ancient wisdom can find new forms, and in those shadows, Freemasonry found both its inspiration and its mystery. Whether you see this as historical continuity or powerful myth, one thing remains certain: the human quest for meaning, wisdom, transcendence never truly dies. It simply finds new forms, new guardians, and new ways to pass the eternal flame from one generation to the next. In that, dedicated individuals can preserve what matters most across the centuries, to find meaning in action, and to preserve wisdom across the generations. When their order was destroyed, that quest didn't die with them, right? Transformed, adapted, and found new expressions. Yet, the connection to the Knights Templar remains a powerful draw. Modern Masonic Templar orders continue to perform elaborate rituals that claim an unbroken chain of tradition stretching back to the Crusades. The Templars, they argued, had never truly disappeared. They had simply learned to operate in secret, manipulating world events from behind the scenes. These theories would persist and multiply, eventually spawning countless conspiracy theories about Masonic influence on everything from the American Revolution to modern politics. Square and compasses, the all-seeing eye, the checkered floor. The pillars of Yakin and Boaz, these weren't just tools of the building trade, but perhaps the literal truth matters less than the symbolic reality. The Templars represented an ideal warrior monks dedicated to protecting sacred knowledge and pursuing spiritual enlightenment through action in the world. They were keys to understanding the sacred geometry that the Templars had preserved. But the roots run much deeper. The new organization claimed descent from medieval stonemasons, but their elaborate degree systems, their emphasis on ancient mysteries, and their fascination with temple symbolism suggested other influences. The 3 degrees of craft masonry entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason recreated the hierarchical structure of medieval guilds. As Freemasonry spread across Europe and America, additional degrees proliferated. The most significant was the Knight Templar degree. Whether these claims were historically accurate became less important than their symbolic power. Freemasonry provided a way for the Templar legacy to survive and flourish in the modern world. The emphasis on brotherhood, the preservation of ancient wisdom, the use of symbolic architecture to convey spiritual truth saw. These elements bridged the gap between medieval knighthood and Enlightenment philosophy. As Freemasonry spread, it attracted remarkable men. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and numerous other American founders were Masons. In Europe, intellectuals, artists, and revolutionaries joined lodges. Mozart composed Masonic music. Voltaire was initiated shortly before his death. The organization became a vehicle for Enlightenment ideals, reason, tolerance, and the perfectibility of mankind. But critics saw something more sinister. Today, Freemasonry exists openly in most countries. Scholars debate whether this connection is historically accurate or simply a compelling myth. The documentary evidence for direct Templar survival is thin. What makes this story enduringly fascinating is into just the historical mystery adds, what it represents about human nature. Freemasonry became one of those expressions. Today, as we walk past Masonic temples in our cities, or notice Templar symbols in old churches, the Knights Templar may have fallen in 1307. The shadows cast by the Templars are long indeed.